Hey everybody, Jessica here from the DIBY Club, and in this video I'm going to be teaching you how to grade your bottom patterns. So this pattern is the Dauphine skinny pant pattern by the DIBY Club, but this method is going to work for any of your pants, shorts, skirt patterns. Now if you aren't familiar with grading, what this means is that we're going to be using multiple sizes to get a perfectly fitting pattern piece. A good example of why this is applicable or how it can be helpful to you is if you've ever gone to the store and you are shopping for pants, which, holy cow, I hate shopping for pants because they either fit me in the thigh or they fit me in the waist. They'll never fit both. They're either perfect in the thigh and too big in the waist, or perfect in the waist and too tight in the thigh, and I have to make that decision of where exactly I want them to fit. Now, if you're sewing, you can absolutely make your pattern pieces fit you perfectly by using this grading method. So the first thing you're going to want to do is put together your pattern. If you're using a PDF pattern, that means taping it together, or you can do a wide format print like I have here. And this isn't required, but a tip that I have for you is to actually print in black and white, and I will show you why in just a minute here. Pretty much all patterns are going to have different line styles for the different sizes, so you can follow which size is which, and having it in black and white is just going to make our grading line super easy to find. So the first thing we're going to do is figure out where you need to grade. So get your sizing chart and then circle along your sizing chart where you fall into what sizes. So what size your high hip is, your full hip is, your mid-thigh, your knee, your calf, and your ankle. You want to get all of those mapped out on your size chart so that you know what sizes you're going to be grading between. The next thing you want to do is locate those areas on the pattern. So if you're using a DIBY Club pattern, these will be marked on your pattern piece. So I have my mid-thigh location here, my full hip, my high hip, and then outside of the camera, I have my knee, my calf, and the ankle locations all mapped out on my pattern piece. If your pattern does not have these marked for you, one thing you can do is hold them up to yourself. Just trim out around your pattern piece and hold it up to your body and mark where those places are if you can't easily and readily identify where they are. So now that we know what size we need to go at what point, we're going to go ahead and map them out on the pattern piece. So I have a red marker here. This is why I like to print in black and white, because it's going to make these points super easy to identify while I'm grading them. So yes, I'm climbing around on the floor this time because my pattern piece is so big. So I have a high hip size of 6. I have a full hip of 8. I have a mid-thigh of 10. My knee is 10. I'll go ahead and scoot this up for you so you can see. My calf is a 12, and then my ankle is a 10. So those are the sizes I'm going to be grading between. So what we're gonna do is start with at the top. So I have my high hip, it's a size 6. So this is my size 6 line here. I'm just gonna make a dot there, okay? The next, I'm an 8, so another dot goes there. Mid-thigh, I'm a 10, so we will mark out there. My knee, I'm a 10, so I'll mark down there. Go ahead and slide this up for you to see better. The calf, I'm a 12, so that'll come out here. And then my ankle, I'm back in at a 10. Now that I have these points marked on my pattern, we need to create what's called the grading path. Now the most important thing to do when you're creating a grading path is that you make these transitions between sizes really smooth. So that means right now I'm on a 6, right? So we don't want to follow the number 6 path and then bump out to an 8. And then follow the 8 path and bump out to the 10. Because if you do it that way, first off, it's going to be really hard to match on both pant legs, but it's going to create these awkward, horrible bumps. in your finished garment. You're gonna have a nice big bump out here and a bump down here, and we absolutely don't want that. We want this to be nice and smooth, and it might take you a few strokes to get it right, but that's okay. Just take it light-handedly and work your way down from one point to the next. So I have that line there, and then we need to go from an 8 down to a 10. So you see how I'm actually going to go back and make this come in a little bit. I don't want it to go out quite as quickly. And there we go. So there's that grading curve. And I have a notch here. I don't want to forget that. So I'm going to go ahead and mark my notch out. And then continue down. My knee is actually a 10, just like my mid-thigh, so that is going to just follow this line perfectly through to the size 10. But now I need to go down to a 12 at the calf and then back in at a 10 at the knee. So same deal. We're just going to take it nice and smooth. And if you need to go over it again to smooth it out, you absolutely can do that. And then I'm going to come back in nice and gradually. And I want that to come in a little softer, like that. And so we have that side finished. So the next place we want to make sure we get graded is the inside of the leg. So we have the crotch line here that goes down into the inseam. We absolutely want to make sure that this part is adjusted as well. So how we're going to do that is to see how far out we are at the same area on the outside. So out here, I start at about right in between the 6 and the 8. And then I come into the 8 up at the full hip and out to a 10 at the mid-thigh. So I'm gonna go ahead and mark out to a 10 across from this point out to this outside edge. And then since I'm about halfway in between the 8 and the 10 out here, sorry, I meant the 8 and the 10, not the 6 and the 8 before. So now that I'm about halfway between an 8 and a 10, I'm gonna find my 10, which is right here, and my 8, which is right here. And I'm gonna go ahead and mark right in between. And then all of my sizes come together at this point. So I'll go ahead and put a dot right there. So the same rules apply to these lines as the other lines, where we just wanna try to make this as smooth of a transition as possible. And this is actually really simple along this side here, because all we have to do is follow this, which is the same for all of my sizes. And then come in and I come out right in between my 8 and 10 to meet up with my 10 right there. And then I will just be following it down to meet up with my 10 mark right here. And there is my graded path for the inside of the leg. And now I'm going to go ahead and repeat this process with my other leg, my front leg. If your pants don't have a yoke or any pockets, then this is where you will be stopping. But this pattern has both a yoke and pockets, so I'm going to show you how to know where to grade for those. We'll go ahead and start with our back yoke. Now what you're going to do is figure out where you left off on the back of your pant leg. So my back pant leg, I stopped at the 6. So all that means is that I'm going to go off of the size 6 for the back yoke. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my marker and just mark the size 6 so that I remember which size I need to cut. The next pieces I'm going to look at are my pocket pieces. So this is my pocket bag. This is the lining of my pocket. And so that means that it needs to match up on the side here, just like my pant legs. So what you're gonna do is find out where the different markings are on it. So I have my high hip up here, and then my full hip is actually going to be about 4 inches beneath that. So that one isn't marked. So my full hip is about right here, and my high hip is up here. So we need to figure out where we marked on our pant legs for those. So my high hip, I had a size 6, and then my full hip, I had a size 8. So the same thing applies. I'm gonna start by making my dots. I have my size 6 lines here, so I'm gonna put a dot for 6 here and an 8 right here, and just grade between those two. And I do know that when I was coming down to my size 10, I was making a transition line right off from the 8. So it just barely came out after that dot on my legs, just barely. So I'm not gonna worry about bringing it all the way out to the 10, but I do know that this is going to be coming out maybe 1/8 of an inch down here. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with that. Then we're gonna head back up here to the high hip. So my high hip, I'm at a 6, so that means this one's going to be marked right there. If I were to go up to my high rise line, I would take it up there. And now I need a grade between this point and this point with as much smoothness, seamlessness as possible. So we'll go ahead and mark it like that. So that is how you're gonna grade your pocket pieces. This pattern also has a pocket barrier, which has the exact same grading points as the pocket bag does, because it's going to match up at the top here with the pocket bag. So I know with my pocket bag, I started with a 6, and then this doesn't come down as far, so I think it's going to end up between a 6 and an 8 by the time it gets to the bottom here. I have that much height, let's see, and an 8 there. So it looks like for me, going off of my finger measurements here, I'm gonna start with a 6 and then just barely end at an 8. So I will mark out at the 8 here. I've got my 6 up here, and then make my grading path between. And if I were to come up here to the 6, then I would just be doing the same. At this point, everything should be marked. You're gonna go ahead and just follow your cut lines and use your newly graded cut lines to cut out your pattern pieces. From that point, you will either be height adjusting or you will be cutting out your fabric to get started on your sewing project. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. Please leave any questions in the comments, and of course, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any videos in the future. And we will see you next time.